Okay, who's ready for some more botany fun? Yeah, people ready? Cool. Also, to let folks know, I still am editing last week's video, but I will try to post it very soon. So I apologize if it's not that it's not up yet. Just been a very crazy week. But here we go, and this is week 4, I think. Week that many. Okay, yes, yes. Let's hope that this is week 4, and I'm not just making things up. So, welcome or welcome back to Plant Families in Our Foods Series 2. I am really happy that you're all here with me tonight or today or whatever time of day it is where you are. Um, and again, a reminder that you don't have to know a ton about plants to be in this class. There's some vocabulary in here, but I'm gonna try to make it so it's less about the vocabulary and more about the patterns and more about how you look inside of the plants. So the purpose of this class isn't even necessarily to memorize or know everything about this family. It's just to be able to get used to seeing plants and seeing how they resemble each other, so that way when you're outside with the plants, then they feel more familiar and like old friends. So that's our goal today, and at any point you can ask me questions. And here we go. So as usual, welcome to Plant Families in Our Foods and Nature Journaling Series 2. All of my photos here so far are from Creative Commons. So I have great appreciation to Creative Commons and all the people who generously upload their pictures there. Someday, I really hope to be able to have enough photos that I can do this myself. But until then, I'm just gonna say thank you to all of the awesome photographers out there. That's part of nature love as well. So we'll start out with our usual, we'll have our 3 pictures. And with each of the pictures, we'll take 2 minutes that we can sketch however much or however little we like of the picture in front of us, and then an extra minute after that to add words and numbers to our pictures. So we will do our first one right here, starting now. So about 15 more seconds. And there's our 2 minutes for sketching. Now I would like to encourage you, let's spend the next minute adding any words, describing words, observations, questions, labels to our pictures, and numbers for our pictures. About 10 more seconds. And there's our minute. Ready for picture 2? Yeah, I see some nods. Here we go. Here's our second one. And once again, we'll take 2 minutes to sketch what we can. About another 20 seconds. And there's our 2 minutes. Now let's take 1 more minute to add any words and numbers to our pictures. Let's take about 10 more seconds. And there's our minute. Ready for the third picture and final one before we meet our family? Here we go. We'll take our 2 minutes to draw as best we can. Let's take another 15 seconds. And there's our 2 minutes with sketching. And now we'll take one final minute to add any words and numbers to our pictures. Let's take another 10 seconds. And there's our minute. How y'all doing? Doing good? All right, who's ready to meet our family of today? Yeah? Okay, here we go. And a 1 and a 2 and a 1, 2, 3. Welcome to the Mallow family. Also known as Malvaceae or Malvaceae if you're better at pronouncing things than I am. So yeah, doesn't exactly have a very complicated meaning. Malva is just the Latin name for mallow, and then there's a bunch of other languages in there that have similar words, and so the etymology, at least for me, is a little confusing. But yeah, this is our mallow family. This little beauty right here is a cheeseweed, so-called because of the way that the seeds look. They look inside of it, when you see them all together, it looks a little bit like a cheese wheel, I'm told. I can't exactly remember what a cheese wheel looks like, but yeah, there we go. So this one's called cheeseweed. We have, yeah, I was kind of hoping it tasted like cheese as well. That would have been more fun. And then we have, it's not letting me go back. There we go. This one right here. Does anybody know what this one is? This one's a fun one. This right here beholds the original marshmallow. This right here is marshmallow. This one right here, does anybody know this one? This one is cotton. It's a cotton flower. And last but not least, I think a lot of people might know this one. Does anybody know this one?
Hibiscus?
Yes, hibiscus. So those are just a few of our lovely family members. I love this one, the hibiscus, because it reminds me of a dancing girl. Like not only the sort that a flower that she might wear in her hair, but also when you hold it at a certain angle, it looks like her skirts are flying up all around. I think it's rather lovely. So that's our mallow family. And we will do, as usual, the anatomy of our flower. Because I like to start off with the same basic spot. So we have, this is what a flower would look like if we were to see it in a textbook, with all of the basic parts. So we have our stem, we have our sepals. Those are the little leaf-like appendages that are directly part of the flower. Then we have our petals. In most flowers, it's usually bright and showy, and in this family, that's definitely the case. We have our stamens that make the pollen, and we have our pistils that make the seeds. And the way I remember that is PSSP. So pistils make seeds and stamens make pollen. And also, in fact, I like your question. They originally did make marshmallows from marshmallows. That is where the term originally came from. It originally came from Egypt, where they would use the roots of the marshmallow to create a mucilaginous kind of drink, something to help you soothe your sore throat. And as they would cook it up, it would become very thick. And then it originally was used when they began creating the concoctions. And then over time, nowadays, they don't really include that plant in it, unfortunately. But that's originally where it did come from. I'm not entirely sure how big a cotton flower is. but that's a good question too. I like that question. So here's our basic anatomy. And because a lot of terms are going to involve this particular part, I wanted to have a bit more up close reminder of pistil. So the parts where the seeds are made, I picture it kind of being like a vase. So the very bottom of the vase is where the ovary is, where all of the seeds are made, or ovules as they are when they're in there. The neck of the vase is called the style. And then the very top where all of the pollen collects is called the stigma. And I include these terms because this is part of the terms for our family today. This is our family today. So as you can see, there's a little something extra here. Instead of just having sepals, we also have bracts. Dun, dun, dun. They're also kind of leaf-like appendages, except that they're a bit special. They're just below the flower, but they're not quite a full-on leaf either. And different plant families will have different kinds of bracts, but this is just one of those other appendages that you sometimes have to worry about when you're looking at plants to identify them. So our mallow family here has bracts, then it has the sepals. Then we have usually 5 petals, quite showy and colorful and lovely. Sometimes they overlap like tiles on a roof and sometimes they don't. A lot of our examples do seem to. Then we have, instead of just having a stamen here, a stamen there, we have stamens in a tube, just because they were feeling fancy, I suppose. So sometimes you might see a lot of stamens clustered at the top, or sometimes it just might go all the way up and down. But we have a tube of stamens, and then going up through the middle of that, we have our pistil, which sometimes might be hard to tell apart, but you, like in our first one with the hibiscus, you could see some little ones at the very top that looked a bit different. And so in this case, this is where stigma becomes important. There's more than one stigma in a lot of the pistils in this family. And a lot of times that will correspond to the segments of the ovary, how many chambers the ovary will have, or how many chambers in the cheese wheel. So there's that. And just to make this a little bit clearer, I'll show you one of the earlier, just as an example here. So as you can see here, this is our tube of all of the stamens here. And then these cute little 5 fuzzy button looking ones, that's the stigma, or the, part of the pistil. Those are sticking out of the top. I'm also told that a lot of species might have specialty bees that like to pollinate them. I don't think that bees are the only ones. Definitely seen birds kind of go, and trying to put their cute little beaks in there. And I saw that there was one picture over here that had a little fly. But I am told that there are some bees that will make some of the species their specialty. So that's kind of an interesting little thing about the pollinators. So I'll give folks a second if they want to draw this. At the moment, does anybody have any questions before we go on? And you might have.
Sorry, going back to the hibiscus, the yellow bits were the stamens, weren't they?
They were. Now that has some more anatomy here, is that the bits at the very tip right here are specifically called the anthers. And that's where the pollen is collected, is on the anthers. And then the stem of the stamen is called the filament. So
that's right. So the whole thing is a stamen, the stems, the filament, and the top bits, the anther.
Yep.
Thank you.
My pleasure. And I include that just because I try not to overdo it with the vocab, just because I still get myself confused. You'll hear me stutter and accidentally call something a stamen when I mean to say a stigma because of the st. And so it gets annoying. And so I didn't want to overdo it with people, but yeah. But yeah, the little tips are the anthers.
Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure. Does anybody have any other questions before we go on to the wall of text? And you might have to call out. I can't easily see if anybody's raising their hand. So for now, it seems like nobody's, but you can always call out if you need to. So here's our wall of text, not as bad as previous weeks, fortunately. So here are some of our key characteristics of our friends. The leaves have a mucilaginous quality, or mucus-like quality, so kind of thick and slippery. sounds gross, but it might feel really, really good when you're having a sore throat. And it is used medicinally. A lot of the family members are used medicinally in that kind of a vein. Palmate leaves, that pretty much can mean that the veins or the shape of the leaf is shaped like the palm of your hand. So we might see that, although the leaves might be a lot of different shapes. Some of the leaves might be circular, others might have, little lobes and points in the lobes, but all in all, it will still in some way resemble the palm of your hand. We have 5 sepals. And I swear that sometimes the sepals look kind of weirdly shaped, but anyways, 5 sepals. We also have bracts underneath the sepals. Yay, bracts. If anybody was there for my grasses workshop, y'all know my rant about bracts, but I will spare you that today. 5 showy petals. Sometimes they overlap like tiles on a roof, not always. If you look at the cheeseweeds, they don't seem to overlap nearly as much as some of the others. There's some kind of a special term like imbricate, I want to say, that they call the petals that like to overlap. We have a column of stamens because they were feeling fancy. And then they have a pistil with a superior ovary and the stigma sticking out of the top of the tube. And what we mean by superior ovary is that the ovary is up here above these sepals and petals. If it were down here, we'd call it an inferior ovary only because it's beneath, but that's not a knock on the plant. We don't want the plants to have poor self-esteem, but yeah, superior ovary means that it dwells up here. And most importantly, as usual, let the plant that's in front of you tell you. Just because we have this list of probable qualities, sometimes the plant will still stick out their tongue or their whatever, they'll stick out their stigmas at us and see like, ha ha, I tricked you. I don't match that pattern. And then we just indulge the plant, give it a nice little pat on the petals and say, thank you for surprising me today. So
do these have, oh, I'm sorry. Were you done?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do these have fruit or do they produce anything other than the seeds?
Not to my knowledge. I haven't seen any. If anybody else though has had experiences where they've seen fruits, please tell me because I'd be very interested to know. But as far as I know, it's just the seeds. And from what I've seen, it tends to be the flower or the leaf, or I guess with cotton, it's a bit different though, isn't it? It has that kind of fuzziness that's produced inside of the flowers. So that is a really, really good question. And I might have to do some more research.
I can tell you because I've picked cotton just a little bit. We were driving through Texas and there was a field that had clearly already been harvested, but some of the plants along the side were like not. So I found the car and I stole some. But I like to spin. So I picked the cotton, and it is the fluff is part of the seed, or it's like the casing of the seed. And so when you pick it, I think there were like, there was always the same number of seeds, and I can't remember how many there were, but they were just, it was a good sized seed surrounded by lots and lots and lots of fluff that was basically just sort of growing out of the seed. And you can separate out the fluff from the seeds to be able to spin it or make thread out of it.
And I'm also realizing that I completely misspoke. I just thought of several examples. There are big fruits that sometimes form from these. I completely misspoke.
Excuse me there. I have Lavaterra growing in the garden and also hollyhocks, and they're of the same family. And their seeds form in this very tight bundle. And when you break it all up, each little seed's a flat little disc, almost like, it's hard to describe, but they all fit really neatly in this one big pod of seeds. And you break it all up if you're sowing them. But hollyhocks and Lavaterra are the same, and they've got the same flower. Hollyhocks, of course, have been bred to be doubles and singles and all sorts of different colors. But Lavaterra is a beautiful plant, one of my favorites, really good. Yeah. It
really is. That's cool. And it's cool that you've gotten to look inside and explore with the seeds a bit and see how they look.
It is cool. This is my question relating to, again, with the seeds. I'm now showing my colors as a dedicated knitter and spinner. Do you know if any of the other members of the family produce any kind of fibrous stuff like cotton that can be spun?
Yes, they do.
Okay, I'll wait. Sounds like you got a plan.
But yeah, sorry. I think I just realized I get so into the mindset of the cheese wheats because that's what I see the most, that I completely forgot about all of the tropical brethren who make big fruits. So I apologize for that oversight on my part. And I appreciate that you asked me that question. That was Deborah, right? You asked me that question? Cool. I see you nodding. So, okay, so here we go. I wanted to have an extra word about the bracts just in case they're confusing. So we have three things happening here, aside from the petals, of course. We have the sepals, which are these 5 triangular green things here. Then beneath that, these ones that look a bit more scrappy, these are the bracts. They're a little bit tougher than the sepals. Sepals in general are supposed to protect the flower when it's in bud form. Bracts protect it even more because they're even tougher. And then over here we have the leaves. So I guess you could say that there are 3 leaf-like structures, but then they each have different names and different purposes: sepals, bracts, and leaves. Just
So
wanted
that bud on the lower left, sorry to interrupt, that
Go ahead.
are we seeing the bracts on that bud?
Lower left, you said? Here?
Yeah, right there. Are those the bracts then, or are those the sepals? I guess it must be the bracts because I can't see bracts outside of that, so it must be.
Yeah, I would think so too, although now I really want to look closer next time I see buds and pay attention to what happens. But I would think that too.
It seems like they might only be 5 of them, but you can see on the bracts that are open that the points have there's more than 5 points. So I'm wondering if they'll split apart as it opens.
That was kind of my thing too, that I was wondering, is that in here, do we see it only in 5s or do we see it in more? And then we have these little things that grow down here near the base. That's not at all the same thing. So that would be interesting to observe in the field and then do it,
Watch some of these things grow.
And then do a series of drawings as it opens. And I like that bit of trivia that Susanna just said about how you'd be able to use some of them as toilet paper in olden times. That's not surprising considering how big some of the leaves get on these members and how soft some of them are. So I know that a lot of the leaves have these kind of star-like or star-shaped hairs on the bottom as well. Although for me, that's difficult to see, but yeah, they have these star-shaped hairs on the bottom. So maybe that lends extra fuzziness and softness to some of the members. So there's that. And then because we have we have botanists rather playing musical plants, I had to include this particular subfamily. There's a whole bunch of subfamilies that are now included. Yep, lavatory. There's a whole bunch of subfamilies that are included within Malvaceae now. And this is one of them. And as you see, it completely does not match the pattern, even though the flowers are quite lovely. What's missing that you see, and like that what's a pattern that we've talked about that's missing from these?
The long sticky out pistil.
Yep. And the
lots and lots of stamens.
Yep, the tube of stamens that goes around it. So here are a few that just completely decided to be different. And I'm still thinking, why did you have to combine them? But I suppose that there's probably DNA reasons for that. But this is Sterculeoideae, which is fun. Does anybody happen to know what this flower is? Right here, this lovely complicated one.
A fuchsia?
Not a fuchsia, although it does look like one, doesn't it?
Columbine?
Not a columbine.
Not
That's the
milkweed, is it? Is
Not
it milkweed?
Nope. I'll tell you all very soon. This is going to be a fun surprise, but I just wanted to mention this family. We won't be testing on it today just because I feel more like establishing the main pattern, but I did want to do a shout out to this particular subfamily just because it's confusing. But if you see ones that look like this, then this might be a subfamily. That was from Sterculeaceae.
Now, I'm also noticing all of these seem to have these very like, the petals give an impression, or they're not petals, they are sepals.
Sorry, could you say again? Sorry.
Well, but whichever ones they are, I said petals, but now I'm correcting myself. But whatever they are, they seem to be more like sturdy looking, more solid looking, and a bit waxy, maybe, as compared with the hibiscus and the ones that we saw in the beginning that all seemed very sort of tissuey, like rose petals, kind of. And I'm
Yeah,
wondering if they really are like as solid as that.
this one I think it's a flannel bush. And I think that I've felt these out when I was out doing stuff, and the petals are a bit sterner stuff. And then this one still confuses me. I'm thinking that these must be the petals, and I'm wondering if these are the sepals. This one's all confusing, but we will. Yeah. But I like that observation. Those are good observations.
So I'm sorry, Via, but the things that it doesn't have that the other mallows do are the tube of stamens and what else?
And it looks as though with the pistil in here, it doesn't split out into separate stigmas. It's looking like it's just one thing here. And I'm not sure what the deal is with the bracts either. So this one is a little bit different. But yeah, I just wanted to point out that this one is one that's been added in. So yeah.
That one on the right, it does make, it's hard to tell, but it looks like perhaps you can see the bracts sticking out through and coming forward from behind those long.
Oh,
okay. Are they the sepals? The sort of long pointy ones that are sticking out kind of flat? But it almost looks as though there is like a third sort of layer of things reaching forward in between those. Are those the bracts perhaps?
I don't honestly know. This is one particular flower that I want to study more in detail.
Yeah, these all look very fascinating.
So I've got plans to study this one a bit more. But here we go. Now we get to one of the fun parts. People can call out, what foods do y'all think are in Malvaceae?
Besides hibiscus?
Hibiscus is one.
Marshmallow.
Yep, marshmallow. What else?
Were we discussing this as licorice in there too? Real licorice?
I believe licorice was in Fabaceae. Oh, goodness.
Oh, right. Okay.
Sorry, I have a cat who likes to interfere with stuff. Let's see here. Let's try this again. Come on, cat. No. I'm sorry about that. Okay, let's try this. Yeah. Cat decided to interfere. Anybody else?
We have a plant in Australia called a rosella, and I think it grows in the northern part of Australia, so more of the tropical places where you'd get hibiscus growing, not down here where it's too cold and wet. And the flower of the rosella, we've actually bought it in a jar. It's actually preserved in a syrup. And if you're having a champagne, you drop the flower into the champagne and it puts this beautiful pink color right through your champagne, and the flower sits in the bottom. And when you get to the end of the champagne, you can eat it. It's beautiful.
Oh,
and it's called a rosella.
Rosella.
I'll put it in chat if you want to look it up at some point.
I would love to. That sounds really cool.
They do that with hibiscus flowers as well.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they take the bud and
Do that,
put it in champagne or sparkling water.
Flowers, probably.
Are folks ready to see who's in
Yeah,
the...
one more guess. Is flax in this or no? I'm trying to think if it's got fourfold or fivefold symmetry.
I feel like flax was in a different one, but I could be wrong about that one. I should double check later.
Yeah.
Are you all ready to see the ones, at least the ones I know about?
At least.
We have hibiscus, as
My
people know.
goodness.
We have kola nut. We have okra, cacao, durian, baobab, and the original marshmallow.
Wow.
Also, you were asking about things that could be braided. Kenaf. Also
Never
known as,
heard of it. That's really interesting.
I think it's known as jute as well. It's the one that you use to make rope.
Oh. Now if that comes from the stem, that doesn't come from the seed, does it?
I'm honestly not sure about that one.
Okay, I have to look it up.
One thing I wish I knew more about are these, but I think that these are fabulous questions. See, part of why I love teaching this is because y'all come up with such amazing questions that later on I get to like go geek out on this. And as for the durian flower, we'll be seeing that at the very end. But here, I will show you a couple of things. So this one right here, does anybody want to take another guess about which one this is? Based on which ones we just learned? This here is a cacao flower.
No.
this is cacao. So these are the cacao pods right here. So this is the root of our chocolate. And this one here is the cola nut.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
I was
beautiful.
going to say okra, but I was too shy. So I used to raise it, not raise it, but I had it in my garden. But when you said that it was monogamous, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it right. That was the first thing that came to my mind.
That's really cool.
Oh, that's right. Okra. That's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just thought this was especially cool. That this the cola nut one, and then this is cacao flour right here.
That's
So,
so pretty.
so there we have those. And now it's going to be this is going to be the hard part, I think.
You say puede, you can do it, sister.
Okay, so here is, we'll go on to our next favorite part, which is spot the Malvaceae. And this is going to be the hard part, is where I try to do the polls. So I might have to exit my full screen for a second. I apologize for that. And I'm going to try to launch our poll. Did it launch? No?
Yes.
Mm,
No,
No, not the.
no.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. So I will say launch. There, does that work?
There you go. Perfect.
Okay, and then I'll try to make this slideshow big again. Come on, slideshow. Okay, does that work?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll give people a little time to guess.
Excuse me.
I feel like this is the family where these plants are just extra. They just don't know when to stop.
Sadly, I can't see how people
Guessing.
voting are going. I wish that they would just allow me to have this up here too. Okay, I'm really sorry. Sorry, might be a little bit weird, trying to do this over and over. Yeah, anyways, I'll give people maybe about, 10 more seconds since I can't see. And then are folks ready? Do folks want to know the answer? Yeah, okay, here we go.
Oh, I just guessed that.
This is the baobab.
Well,
Never
that's
got to see it. Never
Are there
got to,
different,
oh, go ahead, sorry.
are there different baobabs that have different kinds of flowers?
Possibly.
I'm remembering in, I think it was Planet Earth, David Attenborough, that very hushed voice of, the baobab tree blooms, and I'm pretty sure it was the baobab that was blooming in Madagascar, and it had this very long flower that then sort of split open, and it had that long pistil. It didn't look anything like that. So, but now I'm not sure if it was baobab or not, but maybe there were different species that had different looking flowers. That's really interesting.
That is so cool looking.
Now, I'm not totally sure everything that baobab's used for, but I do know that, at least what I've heard, is that they might eat some of the younger parts of the plant. Not sure if that means the flowers or the leaves or what, but I found out.
What food is it?
The baobab?
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
Oh, well, it's this tree. It's this huge tree that grows in certain
Huge.
regions. And it sounds like,
Big, big stem.
and it
the
sounds like
huge round stem, yeah.
that people who live in that area might sometimes eat bits of it. But I'm not honestly sure much about it. I wish I knew more about this baobab culture. I only just found out doing this research that it was edible. That made me excited.
But you should look up pictures of it though, because they're so weird looking. They're
cool.
so pretty. They're awesome.
So they eat the bark or the fiber of the tree
think-
itself? I'm not.
I think maybe some of the younger leaves, but I'm not totally sure. I'd say that would be something to check, just because I don't want to give bad information.
I also didn't know what durian was as a food.
So durian, that's one of my favorites. That one's known as the stinkiest fruit ever. It's delicious.
What is
You
a
have to-
fruit?
You have to, okay, so it looks as though it's something super duper spiky, spiky all over. It smells like unwashed gym socks, unless you freeze it. And then it's actually really good. It tastes delicious. It tastes kind of like a custard, but but yeah, it's it smells really bad if you have it at room temperature.
Does it taste like jackfruit, Hubert? I've smelt and eaten that jackfruit, which is bumpy as well on the outside, and it has a really strong smell.
I
Is
think
that like durian?
I think it is. Yeah.
Mm.
Here.
No, the cashew fruit also has a really nasty smell.
Yeah.
So maybe let some
Well,
tropical
that's it.
too.
So if people were wondering, does anybody happen to know this flower? No? This is a pineapple guava.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Oh yes.
is that related to pineapple or just or not? Pineapple's vermilion.
Not
No,
related to
Fajeta.
pineapple.
Okay, so it's a guava that is named after pineapple.
Mhm.
It's a feijoa, isn't it?
Yep, a feijoa.
Feijoa?
That's
Yeah,
lovely.
yeah.
And then does anybody know this one?
Is it a lily? Lily of some sort?
Lily.
Amaranth?
Lilium?
I mean,
Amaryllis.
amaranth?
Oh, amaryllis.
Amaryllis?
I heard it's
Amaranth?
amaryllis. This is an amaryllis.
Yeah, well, that's one of those ones that where they've like been playing musical families again, right? Because didn't you say that amaryllis is not in the lily family?
Yep. They've
Isn't it
they've
look
been
exactly like
it
them?
now has its very own family called Amaryllidaceae. And because they decided to make lilies into a few other different things. Yeah. So now there's Amaryllidaceae and Asparagaceae and oops, spoilers. There's three. All right, here we go. Ready for round two?
Cracked me up.
Glad I make you smile. Right. I'm not sure if I would consider pineapple guava tasting like pineapple or not. I just know that the flowers smell nice and the fruit's really, really good and tart, and I like it. Okay, here's round two. And okay, I've got to do this again where I temporarily stop the share so I can relaunch the poll because it's annoying. Oh God, okay, how do I do this?
You've got it.
Relaunch poll. Yes, we want to relaunch it. Okay, can everybody see the poll?
Yeah.
Excellent. And then come on, slideshow work. Okay, here we go. And remember, it's okay. Don't worry about having to guess it perfectly. All of this is just learning how to spot patterns. And if it's hard to guess, then part of what helps, I find, is to think why they're so similar to each other. Noticing these patterns can help you in the fields when you're looking at things, so that way it's kind of validating. If you say, oh, well, it's because the petals look similar to this other thing, then I think that even that can help you to know that this one's not this one, but they're similar because of this is a learning. So,
Okay.
agree if it's hard to guess.
Change my mind.
I'm not sure how many folks have voted, but are y'all ready to see the answer?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And here we go.
I think.
Boom.
Yay.
This is one of the hollyhocks. One of many. They're quite pretty. So people might see different ways that the hollyhock might look. My first introduction to hollyhock was with black chocolate looking hollyhocks that were really pretty. So as Susanna was saying earlier, they get kind of bred to have different looks in them. They have this kind of lovely, delicate rose-like look sometimes, and other times they might look more bright. So yeah, these were really pretty. Does anybody happen to know this one?
That's a morning glory, isn't it?
Morning glory.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep, it's a morning glory. And then does anybody recognize this one?
Silene, maybe? Selene?
Not Selene.
Oh, is it in the squash family?
Yes, that's me being a troll, and
Oh.
we're using a picture from last week. Sorry.
I missed last week, so I wasn't
Oh, well,
cheating.
you know, that
Yeah,
short-term memory.
Yeah, this is a squash. Sorry, I'm something I do. I like to be a troll. So what tells people that this right here is Malvaceous?
Well, it's the petals, I think, because all the malvas seem to have that similar sort of where they join the base of the flower. They've all got that little gap.
Yep, that little star-shaped gap.
Yeah,
Noticing that in the what was it, the marshmallow, the third flower you showed us at the beginning, they had that very distinctive. The base of the petal is very narrow, and there's a gap in between them
Mm.
in the shape of the again, all those stamens sticking out.
Yep. And I noticed that
Mm.
Kamala was saying the same thing, the tube of stamens in here. That's a big
Yeah.
Yeah.
one too.
That was what got me.
Whereas these ones, this one, you can't really see it, but this one I included because it also has separate stigmas, the same way that our members do, even though you can't see this one for some reason. But this is the female flower, and so I thought that the inferior ovary would give it away a little bit. And then this one, the part that I include to give it away are the vines, which is something very morning glory-ish. And then plus the way that the petals attach is very different. These ones really do form a true tube, where they're all kind of combined into one tube of petals, whereas this one, the petals are still individual.
Yeah, with the morning glory, it is hard to tell. I mean, if I didn't already recognize it as morning glory, it would be hard to tell because they have that, like, it because of the sort of the twisting sort of look that it has, they look like they've got overlapping petals, but then you realize they're actually joined.
Yep.
Mm.
All right, are you all ready for the final round?
Yeah.
Okay, here, what I'm gonna do is, because, yeah, this is challenging, I'm going to try to, okay, first I'm gonna end the poll, then I'm going to relaunch the poll. And this is like huge props to Anne Chadwick for just her awesomeness when she's here doing this, is that this is challenging. So major props to Anne for helping me. Okay, round 3, here we go. Spot the Malvaceae, final round.
Oh, I know that.
I should know what this is.
Folks ready to see the answer? Or does anybody need more time? Not yet. Okay, so here, on a count of 3, a 1, a 2, and a 1, 2, B.
Hey.
So this is okra.
It's lovely.
It is pretty.
It is. I want to just rub the picture of it and feel the kind of velvet looking stigmas all.
Mhm.
How big would that flower be, Eva? The okra flower? How big would that be?
That I'm not
Looks
sure
big.
about. Sadly, I've never gotten to see one in person. So for me, this was a learning. I intentionally looked up okra flowers because I wanted to see what our food item flowers looked like.
Oh,
So it's really pretty looking. But I'm not sure how big.
If
Wait,
can I? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you first. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, did A require some very careful cropping?
Yes. Why do you have a guess as to what A
Just
is?
to know what A is.
The begonia.
Should I say or should I wait?
Go for it.
Oh, wait. Okay. I think it's a cactus, and I think it's probably a prickly pear of some variety.
You're correct on both counts. It is in fact.
My parents have those all over their property, and in June it's amazing. They just
oh, cool.
That's why, yeah, if it weren't for the cropping would immediately give it away, but this is just because I liked that we had a whole bunch of stamens surrounding a very conspicuous stigma. So that was me being a troll again. But what tells you that this is not malvaceous? Just by the flower alone. What tells you it's not malvaceous?
Petals.
Too many petals.
Yep, I heard more than one person say it.
see in here. I thought you were sort of like deliberately like seeing the I don't know, like doing more trolling by talking about or addressing the fact that they breed some of these flowers to have double flowered varieties. So I was thinking, well, it could just be a double flowered version of this, but
I'm not sure if there are ones that have of the Malvaceae that have more than 5 petals in a go. I'm thinking that I'm guessing that double flowered means more like that there's more than one bloom next to each other, or does it mean that there's a lot of petals?
it means a lot of petals.
Oh,
Like like
Lots of
how like
petals.
roses, like wild roses have 5 petals, but then like a lot of garden roses have just lots of petals.
oh yeah,
Think-
yeah, that I
That's,
do.
I think
Yeah.
I believe that's
semi. And they can be semi.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Also, petals
Yeah.
can be really ruffly and they may have the same number, but they're very, very ruffly and swirly.
Mhm.
Exactly.
I don't know about with this family, but in other flowers.
And so
Yeah.
this one stands out because of the 5 petals, the 5 main petals. And yes, E, you're correct. This is scented geranium, Pelargonium genus in the geranium family. And I included that because I thought that the stigma is especially cool on this one, the way that it goes star-shaped. As you can see, it just kind of makes this lovely star-shaped little dealy at the very end. So I thought it was really pretty. It also has the 5 petals, but the 5 petals do not overlap. And also they're not exactly very identical looking. The upper 2 are very distinctive. But I still liked the pattern of 5 present in the stigma. So that was cool. But yeah, this one you can see in the center has kind of this lovely pentagon shape to it. And that's what I do is I look in the center, and if I see something that looks kind of like a pentagon, then in that kind of neat, orderly way, then I'm immediately going to start wondering, hey, could this possibly be Malvaceae? And then I'll look at the other characteristics, palmate leaves, kind of this fuzziness. I haven't gotten to look close enough to see if it has stellate hairs, but there we go. So that was our round.
It looks like the
That's
okra again
interesting.
is like some of a more kind of. It looks like the petals are stiffer, perhaps, whereas the cactus on the left A has that very sort of tissuey texture that it seemed like the first three that you showed us in the beginning all had that very sort of like very, very light, very tissuey kind of look to the petals. So that is very misleading there, very, very tricky.
Yeah. Here we go. Just a quick recap. Our Malvaceae characteristics is that they have mucus-like flowers and leaves when they're crushed, which is medicinal. We use parts of that for medicinal purposes. We have palmate leaves with star-shaped hairs on the underside. We have our 5 sepals here with bracts underneath the sepals, although that's not necessarily 5 bracts. That one I haven't really counted before. We have 5 showy petals that sometimes will overlap. We have our column of stamens, unless you're from Sterculioideae, annoying, bucking the trend little subfamily, but it's good to know that anyways. We have our superior ovary and our pistil here. And again, that's not to say that this plant's necessarily better than the others. They're all equally good. So I hope this one doesn't get a superiority complex. But yeah, we have our superior ovary here. We have our stigmas that stick out of the top of the tube of stamens, usually, not always. Sometimes it just looks like a big blob of stamens, and I'm not sure what the pistil does with that. And then a lot of times we'll have segmented or chambered ovary as well. And before I say thank you for joining us, mind the durian. Apparently these are durian flowers. And that looks a little bit different than the others too, because these petals are doing something weird. But because I wanted to include the lovely durian flowers before it becomes that lovely smelly fruit we love so much, yeah, mind the durian.
Oh, wow.
Do the flowers have a smell, Yvette?
I don't know, but I want to find out. I know that this grows in a tropical area in the world, and I have to go. There's so many fruits and vegetables that come from those places, especially fruits, that I just someday I really want to go and see. I want to go find a place where they grow all of the ones that we can't find like here, and I just want to go and experience them. Got a little taste of it in Costa Rica, but not completely. That was more about the coffee. Anyways, I think that was it for this. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, Ivy, can you go back to the durian flower?
Ah, yes, I can.
I am very intrigued by it because so
Like
when you look at the like there's a couple of flowers that look like they aren't quite open yet. Like there's one this is the lower left and one in the upper left and a few on the right. And you can see like the white sort of closed up petals, and then behind them there's that sort of like pale orangey thing, which are those the sepals.
this bit here. Yeah, I would think that these are the sepals.
And then you have looks like 2 bracts that just open up like pistachio shells or something.
Yep.
Right.
I'm observing the same.
But then the thing I'm seeing is that on some of these flowers that seem to be open, a lot of them we're only seeing the pistil, and it looks like we're only really seeing the sepals and not the petals. And I'm wondering if perhaps those are old flowers where the petals have fallen off or something.
Like this one, for example.
Yeah, because it's confusing because it looks like that looks the same as the sepals.
So I'm
right?
wondering if in this one, both the petals and the stamens have fallen. So maybe this one's already been pollinated, and same with this one, because
Yeah,
I noticed
that's yeah, it's sort of like, it's interesting. It is very interesting to try and make sense of a flower at different stages in its development, because you can just totally, like, if parts are missing and you just don't even realize that, it can be very interesting.
Exactly. And then this is what I was sort of meaning too, about how sometimes the sepals aren't always identical looking, and sometimes they have these kind of weird shape to them. So there's that too. That's a good question about whether this can grow in San Diego. I know that some regions of the United States will be kind of lucky and have areas where some things will grow better than others. I remember hearing about some really fun plants that grow kind of in the Gulf area of the country that we don't usually get here. So there's that too. But yeah, these are kind of fun to explore. And yeah.
So the cacao, was that from that subfamily that was different?
The Sterculoideae, yeah.
So it used to be in a different family?
Well, Sterculoideae used to be its own family. It used to be Sterculiaceae.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so that's the case with most subfamilies that I've seen, is that most of them used to be their own separate family, and then they got kind of lumped together and combined. And that's something that I've heard about botanists, is that we have our splitters and we have our lumpers. So we have people who prefer to have them separate, and then we have people who prefer to kind of throw them together. And personally, I'm of the opinion that whatever works the best in helping you recognize the plant in the field. So I'll teach the overall, like, who lives in what family, but I'll also try to separate out if there are subfamilies that have distinctive differences from the main one, then I'll try to remember those as well. Because then that way it's easier for me to spot when I'm out in the field. So then that way I can know how they're categorized, so that I know how to look them up more efficiently, but then I also can see the differences, and then I won't get totally confused by them. So it's what really, I think it's whatever's the most useful to you that's the best to learn.
It's fascinating what you don't know about what you're familiar with. So my husband grows cacao in the Caribbean, lived down there for a while, and so and there was it was a big product of that village. There was a chocolate factory right there. So I'm quite familiar with the plant and the whole process. And I'm like, wait a second, I've never seen the flower. How is that possible? Or at least not that I'm aware of, or I didn't notice. And the pods themselves are huge. I mean, they're literally this big, sometimes bigger. But I mean, this is like your average cocoa pod size, which makes me wonder, are the flowers big, or they were just so small that I wouldn't have noticed, or, and then I started wondering, I wonder, is there a correlation between the size of a flower and the fruitness, or isn't necessarily? Oh,
I would think that not necessarily. I've seen
it seems that way. Yeah, because some plants, like some of the little squashes have those huge blossoms, and some big huge fruit have little teeny flowers. So maybe so. And one other little cacao trivia I'll throw out there that I was so horrified when I learned this was, at least in the Caribbean, its pollinator is the sand flea.
Ew.
Which bit me up a whole lot. So I hated that creature. But once I learned that fact, I was a lot more respectful to them, since I'm grateful for them pollinating the cacao there. So
I think it's having
another great class. Thank you.
Thank you. I think having a pollinator class would be fun, and I want to prepare one, but I also know it's going to be super complicated, because a lot of different families will have not one type of pollinator, but several. And in that way, we talk about things evolving to a pollinator. Like we talk about, oh, it evolves to this pollinator, but a lot of it is just luck, just dumb luck. This plant survived because this pollinator happened to be in the right place at the right time, and they worked it out. And other times you have, you know, kind of messy things where it's not totally complete. Like that's why we have nectar robbers. We have nectar robbers who like to go in and drill a hole through the plant's underside so it never even deals with the pollen. And then we have a plant who's just like all sad because it didn't reproduce. And so it's
I saw a plant once that has closed up flowers that self-pollinate. And I read about it, and apparently that is actually just like a thing, but it had holes drilled in the side because a pollinator had gone in.
Yep. Above all, I think of nature as just being very opportunistic.
Oh yeah.
You just kind of do what works in the moment. And so do we.
So can I have one last quick question before I have to dash? I have to go pick up my husband. But the cotton, it's not a food, of course, but it is a product that we use. That part that we use, what part of a plant is that? Because it's not the seed, right?
I'll show you.
It's what part of the flower is it?
This is the seed, or this is the seed head. So this is where the stem was attached to the plant. And I don't know, I guess these are the bracts, or I'm not quite sure what they are, but there's something. And there's, I believe there are 5 little clumps in here. And if I pull one of those off, here's one of these. I can pull it apart. Let's see, if I pull it apart, I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So
And aren't
6
those
seeds.
called bowls?
I believe so. This is a bowl, I believe. So yeah, so I can pull it apart, and there's one, I can feel there's one hard seed in here. And then these, I don't know how well you can see, but these there's little fibers. They're probably about 1/2 inch long. Cotton has been bred to have a lot of different varieties, including some that have much longer fibers, which I can tell you as a spinner, it is very difficult to do hand spinning, at least with fibers this short. But there are machines that can do it. And I believe the cotton that I got this from, I mean, I assume it was from basically the textile industry, so it was going to go to machines that can spin it. But I can pull all these little bits of all the little hairs are just attached all around the seed, and they are sticking out of the seed, and I can just sort of pull them off. And here's the seed that was inside that.
So it's a fiber of the
It's a fiber that grows around the seed. I guess I mean, I don't know, like, did like the wild ancestor of cotton have this much fluff to it? I don't know how much of like this has been like bred by humans to produce that much fluff. I don't know. But yeah, these are all just little fibers that grew like sticking out of the seed. And yeah, and then you pull it. Yeah.
I wonder if the fluff is there to make it blow in the wind to actually disperse it so it lands somewhere else.
Good.
Yeah, like, you know, milkweed and you know, a lot of like dandelions and things do that. Yeah. Yes, this is very, very fine, soft fibers, and if I kind of get it in the right form, I could turn it into thread. Should get my spindle out.
I was wondering something similar too. If it originally had that as a way of helping seed dispersal, and maybe we cultivated it to have more fluff than normal.
Which worked great because now we disperse the seeds even further.
This is the kind of question that I'm going to probably look into more for funsies. And I encourage people to write all of these kinds of questions in the Nature Journal, because this is how the fun starts. This is how we get deeper down the rabbit hole. So I'm going to encourage people to check that out. And thank you for the demonstration, Susan. It's really cool to see the actual.
Thank you, Susan.
Here's some thread.
Yes, absolutely.
You can make a bookmark.
Poorly spun by hand, but I could do better with the spindle.
Wow, look at
Oh, wow, you did. What a good job, though.
Yeah, I actually haven't pulled this out in a few years. Not since I started.
Make a jumper out of that.
I need to like actually nature journal like everything I observe about the cotton, because I didn't realize there was so much to see about it.